Welcome back to my channel and to my Notion series. Today is the first in-depth video explaining the templates I've made, and we're starting off with a doozy, trip planning. This page has a lot of intricacies and many databases talking to each other, but I've also tried to make it easy and intuitive to use. This template is available for purchase on my Etsy shop, which I will link down below, as well as any other templates that I have made. So if you want to learn how to use this template or get some ideas to make your own, just keep on watching. Let's go. So to start off, I'm just going to give you a quick look of how my trip planning page looks. I don't have many trips in here at the moment because I've just got the one that I am currently planning, as well as my last trip that I went on, just so I could figure out how I was using everything and how I wanted it to work. Basically, you just see any upcoming trips or any trips that you're wanting to go to but have not yet planned, as well as any past trips and any countries that you've been to. There's also these little custom formulas that will say how many days until you're going on a trip, how many days since you've been on this trip, or how many times you've visited a country, or how many trips for that country that you are currently planning. These are all custom formulas that I will go through once I get to explaining that section of the template. When you open up a page for your trip, there is a template that will populate all this information that you can then fill out based on each trip, which I will again go through when we explain the template. Okay, so let's move over to the actual template itself. The template we're looking at today is an empty version of the template you'll get if you purchase from my Etsy shop. The Etsy shop version has some example countries, example trips, example everything, as well as little explanation boxes everywhere, just to make it easier for people who don't watch the video or who forget how to use something. So the first thing I'll do is just quickly go through each of the databases that are in this little box on the side here. They all link into each trip that you plan, but it's good to know that they're here and how they work as their own, so that you know if anything goes wrong where you can find it. The first one is trips. This is obviously going to look very empty right now, all of these databases, but it will just show any of the trips that you have added. And I've made 3 separate views, whether it's a trip that you're currently planning, a trip on your bucket list, or a trip that you previously have been on. Next is the countries database. This will just have a list of each country. You can either add countries when you are planning a trip, or just countries that you want to go to so you can see them on your front page. And lastly, for the first section is destinations. This just allows you to individually write cities or places you're going to go in a country, so you can keep track of them for your planning. This next section of the databases is about planning and things like that. First one is itineraries. This is just where you'll see any plan that you make and where you can link it to any other activities that you're doing. You don't link it within the trip page itself. Next is the to-do list. Here you see all your to-do items for all of your trips, and it's sorted so that anything complete will show at the bottom. This will become a very busy database, and this page is mostly just used for storing all the to-dos, and you'll just use it on your trip page itself. Then we have the trip journals. Once you go on a trip and write journals of days or things that you do, they will all show up here, grouped by trip. And that's just a quick way to see all the journals you've ever written for any trip you've ever been on without having to individually click into each of the trips. This last section is all the major planning things. So we'll start off with transit plans. This is where you can put any sort of transit plans, whether it be a flight, a boat, a train, whatever you want, just when you're getting from one destination to the other, so that you can plan that. Next is accommodation. This page will just store any accommodation in views, whether you've booked it or it's just ideas that you're looking at, but you haven't yet chosen a place for a destination or a period of time in your trip. Then we have activities. This is where you can put any activities, going to events, going to certain places, things like that. And again, it has the different views of whether it's already booked or it's just an idea that you want to look more into. Then we have food. This is the same as activities. I just split them up just to make it a bit cleaner and easier, because you're not always planning the same things at the same time. And lastly, for the databases, and then we can move on to the fun stuff, is the shopping wish list. This again is a page that you're probably not going to use, and we'll just use it within the trip itself, but it just shows everything that you're either wanting to buy or already bought in those 2 different views. Okay, so now that we've gone through that, I'm going to make an example trip and explain how everything works and show the template within the trip. So we'll make a new one. Let's say we're going to Italy in November. So we need to add a country. So we'll add Italy. And that will automatically create the country because we haven't made it yet. And then we set travel dates for November. So let's say we're going from the 1st until the 15th. And then you can see it has this automatic counter based on the travel dates. That's 41 days until we leave for Italy. This task complete is empty at the moment, but you'll see later when we add tasks that will fill up. If you show the hidden properties, you can add destinations, or you can also add them down here. And these are just formulas that will help with the custom formulas that I will explain on the front page later. So you don't need to really use any of the hidden properties. So let's start in the information section. This first column is destinations. So each destination you go to, you can add it for your reference. So let's say we're going to Rome. You need to add the country, but it will also automatically add the trip if you add it from this section, but it won't add the country. You have to add that yourself. Within destinations, there's also a simple little template that will show any itinerary, accommodation, transportation, etc., where you've marked that the destination is Rome. So this will automatically populate itself as we fill out everything else. Let's also do one more destination just so we can see how it works with multiple. And let's add Florence. So again, you'll see because we added in this section, it'll automatically add this template. One thing I forgot to do is for any trip, you can add a cover. So let's go to Unsplash and just search Italy. Just reposition it to be how we like. You can use Unsplash, you can use pictures you already have. You can use pictures off Pinterest, whatever you want really. Next is transit plans. So we have to get to Italy. How are we going to get there? So technically to Italy, you can't go in one stop. So I guess let's make two just to make it fun. Where are we going to stop? Let's say Dubai. So let's go Melbourne to DXB. You don't have to write it like this. You can write just words, DUB, because you know what that means, whatever you want. So in terms of destinations, you can add Rome because that is the first place that you will land, even though this is a layover, or you can just add Dubai and change the country if you're staying there for a longer period of time. It's up to you really. So I'm just going to put Rome for this. Transit mode, a plane, flight code, Etihad, whatever. And then you can also put in your departure date, time, so that you know when it is if you need to quickly look it up. This hidden property here is just a formula that combines the departure and arrival time so that when we close out of here, you can see it very simply. So you see whenever we add any sort of transit, it will show the code of the flight as well as the departure and arrival time just really neatly. So then we have to go from Dubai to Rome. So once again, the destination is Rome. Transit mode is plane, whatever. And we are departing at 12 and arriving. These are probably not going to be correct at all. I do not remember the flight times from Melbourne to Rome. 19, let's say. And so once again, you close out of this and you'll see them here. So I will just quickly add the next two for getting home. Okay, so those are added. Now we're also going to Florence. So we need to add a way to get to Florence. And let's say we're just going to take a bus because it's not too far. So Rome to Florence. This one, the destination is, you can put Rome and Florence. So you can have more than one destination, or you can just put Florence because you're ending up in Florence, and for the bus back, put Rome. Again, it's up to you. So this one's a bus. There's no flight codes. We can just leave that empty. Or if there's a bus code that you want to put in to remember, you can just put that in the same section. So we're going to Florence from 4th. We're leaving at 8 a.m. and we'll arrive at 12. Again, don't remember the time. Actually, that's too long. It's not that big. 10. Italy is not that large. Okay. So then you see it automatically be sorted based on the date that you're going. So then we add the way back. Florence to Rome. Okay, so we have all of our transit plans, and if you add anything else at any point, you can always add it in later. These are just ones that we're adding in that we know we're doing now. And then next we have accommodation. So where are we staying for these places? So there's multiple ways you can do this. You can hit new here, but there is also a planning section here. So I'm going to leave accommodation for now, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. Next on this template, we have a plans and bookings and itinerary section. This again will come in more help for later on once we go through the paying section, but we can add these things. So the way I do it is potentially a bit slow, but it just makes everything a bit cleaner. What we do is we find when we're going, so we're leaving the 1st of November, and we add in here MEL to FCO. There's no address, so we can leave this, and we have the date here, trip, destination, Rome, booking we can leave empty, and then for this itinerary you do want to look at the hidden properties. So we open these and we find what itinerary relates to which database we're pulling from. So this is transit plans. We want to connect any transit plans to do with getting from Melbourne to Rome. So we have the MEL to DXB and the DXB to FCO. And that's all we have. So then if we do have to add the time of the flight, which I believe was 12 a.m. But if it's different, you do need to come here and change the time. So if it was 2, you change it to 2, and it changed to 2 down here. And again, this is just a formula that's used to show the itinerary down here in a nice way without making things messy by having multiple lines. So a part of this template is to-dos. So if you have anything you need to do, you can add it here and it'll automatically link to this. So say we have to confirm flights, and that'll add a to-do that is automatically linked to this itinerary. One thing you do need to do when you make one of these to-dos is you do need to open it and connect the trip so that you will see it in the to-do list and in your quick to-dos. You only need to do that if you create the to-do list within here. If you create a to-do property within the to-do list, either the quick one or the major page, then you don't need to do that. So I will just quickly add the rest of our transit plans and then we'll go on to the next section. Okay, so in the itinerary, there's also a timeline view, which you can change how much time you see. So we change it to bi-weekly and head to our right section. Here we can see all of our plans. Maybe if we make it a month, it'll be easier to see. Here we go. So you can see all the itinerary we've put in so far. Next is the shopping list. So things we want to buy. So let's say leaning Tower of Pisa. Souvenir. I don't know how to spell souvenir. Souvenir. Oh, just I. Okay, spell Pisa. Oh, it's an S. Okay, now with correct spelling. So, store, tower, gift shop. Destination is Rome. Price, $20. Category, gift, because my dad wants it. And then you can add a store link if you want. There's also, again, a formula which is hidden, so it shows here. So you can see how much it costs, what type of purchase it is, and the location you need to get it. You can also add a cover. And you can make this cover the exact gift you want or just something to do with it, just so you have a nice little visual representation. So once you've bought something, you can open it and click bought, and it'll move from the want to buy view into the bought view. You can also, in the want to buy view, set the properties so that you can see the checkbox, so you can quickly tick bought. And then here you won't see that view. That's up to you depending on how sort of clean you like it. I often like just opening pages to do something if it's cleaner. The last section here is trip expenses. So here you can add any expense that you've made if you want to keep track of it, whether it's major expenses that you've purchased before your trip or expenses that you want to track during your trip. So let's put in some examples. Okay, so here I've just added a few things. You can see that there is the date that you've paid it, the price, as well as a total down the bottom to see the total amount that you've spent, what type it is in case you want to keep track of that or make separate views for each type, as well as if you're going with someone else, who it's paid by and if you've paid them back. So you can see I paid for flights, my mum hasn't paid me back, and my mum paid for a bus ticket and I haven't paid her back for that yet. So that's just a very simple way to track expenditures when you're going with someone else. Now I will go through these navigation pages so that we can finish up this page. The first one is a packing list. This is a very simple page that just has to-do check boxes on it that will, each time you make a trip, come all fresh and unticked so you don't have to worry about resetting it. Here you can, as you're packing, tick off as you have things so you don't forget things you need. And if there's specific things that you want, you can just press enter in any category and add them in. So say high heels, I want to take on this trip. And this will not add it to any other trips. So if you make a new trip, then you won't see high heels. If you want to add a thing onto your packing list that you want every trip, you need to go into the template and edit that, which I'll show you later. There's also a location specific column. This is just for things that you might need, such as a specific type of medicine. Say you're going to Africa and needed malaria pills or something, or really anything that you don't think fits in any other categories and wouldn't be something you take on another trip that needs a new category for. You can just quickly add it in here and then tick it off as you've packed it. Next is the to-do list. So you can see below the navigation, there is a quick to-do list. This will show any to-do tasks that aren't yet done. So you can see the one we added earlier, which is confirm flights, is not done. So if we confirm our flights and we tick this box, it will disappear. You could set this up to be a bit more specific, say filter it so that you only see things that are due this week. That way you're only seeing on this to-do list things that you have to get done this week, and anything else that can wait a little longer, you won't see. That depends on how many tasks you have at one time. Now that we've added that to-do for confirming flights and we've checked it, you can see here it says tasks complete 100%. This is a roll-up that is just calculating all of the tasks in the to-do list and how many of them are complete versus how many incomplete, and that way you can get a quick visual representation of how you're doing with your planning and how much you have to go. Let's have a look at what the full to-do list looks like. So you can see in here it is quite simple. It is either incomplete or complete. So you can see our confirmed flights is complete. If you accidentally complete something, you can untick it and it'll show back up in incomplete, and that's it. You can also set a due date if you need to specifically do something by a date, or you can leave it blank. So let's add some more tasks. So as you can see, we've added a few more tasks. If we go back to the main page, you can see none of them show up here. And that's because none of them have a due date that is this week. If we add it, that the start date relative to today is next week, see we now see these next few things, but not all of them. We can also make sure to sort them so that the due date is ascending, so we see them in the order of things that we need to get them done. The next page is trip journal. So this is more for either when you're on the trip or when you've come back from the trip, but basically you can just add a new page for each day or activity you do, and it will come up with this template where you can write down how the day was and insert any photo memories into these call out boxes. What it will also do is bring up any itinerary that you had on that specific day. So if you make the page on the day of, then this will automatically populate. If you're making this after the fact, you need to go to filter and make the date to the date that you are writing about. So if we do November 1st, you will then see that the itinerary for our flights will show up. Don't forget to add your destinations to link to the destination page as well as the countries for the same reason. So let's call this our travel day. And then if you do @ you can also grab a date here so you can quickly see on the title what date it is. And if it's today, you can type @ today and it'll automatically say today. And then tomorrow it'll say yesterday, and we'll keep going until it just says September 21st. So let's say it was a very long day of travel, but went smoothly. Arrived at our hotel and had a good nap. And I don't have any photos to add here, but maybe we can grab some real quick. So you can do things like this. And if you want to add a new picture, you can keep it with this theme of having them in callout blocks by doing /callout. And it'll come up with probably some variation of not how it looks here. And you can just go to color and to default background. And Notion's added this new thing where you can remove icons from callouts, which is nice, and then just get a blank box. You could also just hold Alt and drag and drop a picture you've already put or an empty callout box and delete the photo, and you've got another empty one, or drag and drop before. If you want to have more columns, just again drag and drop and make the pictures lay out how you'd like them to. So that's how you do the trip journal. As you can see here, it's very blank. So you can also choose to add one of your photos as the cover or a different photo, but you want to add one of these photos, you can right click and copy link to original and paste the link in here, and you'll see that it easily shows the picture. Now to finally get to the page that I was talking about before so that we can finish up this trip page, and it's planning. So this is the page you want to go to when you're planning out all of your accommodation, your activities and your food that you want to go to, just to make it easier and have them automatically sorted as ideas. So you can add a new thing each time, say a new hotel. And you can call this whatever you want. You can put the address. No, Mikan. Come on, down you get. Down you get. Oh. You can also write, if you want, the date that you've booked. Let's say 21st of the 9th. And the confirmation code if there is one. Then you can add the check-in date and the check-out date, the price, and the room type, whether it's a hotel, a motel, an Airbnb, and you can add things you want. The booking attachment for any email confirmation documents you get, you can just link them here so you can easily find them. Unhide that. So also add your destination. So this is our hotel in Rome 1, just so I don't get confused. And you can also add ideas you have, and then when you book them, change this to booked. And you see it disappeared from here and ends up in booked. So let me just add a few others. If you already have booked them and they're not an idea, you can just add them in this view and they'll automatically have the status booked. Okay, so that is our booked accommodation. And then you can do the exact same thing with activities and food. These databases work exactly the same. They're just separated for ease of use, really. So now that I've added some things to all of these, we'll go back to the trip page and show how these work with the itinerary. So you can see now that I've added in accommodation that I have set to the status as booked, it automatically will show up here in our empty accommodation section that we had before. So if you had something that you booked, you could also just add it here and it would show up in the planning section. Over here, we have our Colosseum tour and our pizza place that I added that you will see show up here, and they will only show up here as long as they're not linked to an itinerary. So I will show how these things disappear. First, let's add our hotels. Here you can see the hotels and the Airbnbs that we're staying at. Obviously, you don't necessarily have to add them as ongoing from day to day in this calendar if you think it's a bit messy, but it also makes it look nice in the timeline view, and you can see, make sure that there are no gaps where you are left a day without a place to stay. So that's why I do like having a timeline view, just to have an overview that way. Next, I'll add the plans and bookings to show how that works. So let's say we're going to the Colosseum on the 3rd. So we say Colosseum tour on the 3rd at 10 a.m. So we open the hidden properties, go to activity, and click the one that's related, the Colosseum tour. And you'll see if you watch over the side here, when I click Colosseum tour, it disappears. And that's because we've set up a filter for these things to only show plans and bookings where the itinerary is empty. That way you can quickly check that you've added everything that you've booked to your itinerary. This was just the easiest way, because I found if you drag and dropped things, it would add all properties from the previous database you took it from, and it was just very messy. So this is why I have the itinerary separate. So now you see our Colosseum tour, and if you want to go to the plan of booking, if you've put any more extra information, you can just click on it from there. So let's do the same for the best pizza place in Rome. And once again, you see that it disappears up here. So now we have no plans or bookings that we haven't added into our itinerary. And you can see our Colosseum tour and our pizza dinner on this timeline as well. There is also a Kanban view board that I haven't showed yet, which will just show based on each date that you have something planned for, if that's how you prefer to view your plans. So there's all different views depending on how you like to see the plans that you have. I think I prefer the timeline view, but I like adding things in the calendar view. And that's all the template features. I know it seems a little bit confusing, but once you use it once and figure out how you like to use it, it gets much more intuitive, as well as being very, very functional and relating everything and making things easier for yourself. So let's just quickly click off some tasks, look like we've done things, and go back to the main page. To quickly add, if you want to edit how that template that we've just filled out looks, all you do is go to this button here, the new button, press the down arrow, go to the new page, click the 3 dots and edit, and it'll open up the template. You put it in full screen mode, see it a little better, not all squished, and you can change anything here that you want different. It's all up to you. So you can see now, because we created that country Italy in our trip, you can see Italy here, and you see the custom formula at planning one trip. Let's just quickly add a picture to make this look a little nicer. That's Venice, but that's fine. It doesn't matter that we're not going there. Okay, so let's quickly add some things to our other tabs so we can talk about the custom formulas and everything. Let's say we want to go to Paris. This is a new country we have to add, France. And we don't have any travel days, so we just leave this empty because it's something that you want to go to. You'll see if you don't leave any travel dates, it'll automatically, the formula will tick want to go, and that shows up here for this custom formula. So again, you don't have to worry about these checkboxes. They are automatic based on the travel dates. They read this. You'll see that even for bucket list places, it will populate the same template. And that means if it's something where you want to plan some things, add in some places, some food that you want to go to, or types of flights or accommodation or whatever, you can do that. And then when it's some place that you want to go to, you just add the travel dates that you're going, and it'll automatically move over to upcoming. Let's add a cover to make this nicer. See, now we want to go to Paris, and that has shown France. So now we need to give France a cover. How has that managed to cut off the Eiffel Tower? There we go. There it is. You can also reposition in the gallery view itself if you want to see certain parts of it better in this view compared to when you have the page open. So lastly, before we talk about the custom formulas, we'll add a past trip to see how that works too. So let's say we went to Japan in January. Then we need to add a new country, Japan, travel dates, and then you'll see it says now how many days it's been since this trip. Again, this will populate for this template. If you have a past trip that you want to put all this information in, like I did for my Korea trip in December, you can do that. Or you can just add them here so you can just have a little visual view. Add another cover. And a cover for Japan itself as well. There we go. So now we have an upcoming trip, bucket list trip, and a past trip, as well as 3 different countries. If you open up a country, so let's open up Italy because we have put in all the information for our upcoming trip, you will see that this template is now filled out. So we have our destinations that we've entered, as well as it'll show each trip to the country and any journal entries from any trips that you've made, as well as it'll show what trip it is and what destination you were in for this journal entry. Now, these custom formulas, they were very confusing, but I finally got them to work. So anytime you put in a travel date that is upcoming, it'll count down how many days until the start date. Any trip where the dates have passed, it will count how many days since the last day of the trip. And then any countries you've gone to or you've added into this database will look at all your upcoming, past, and bucket list trips and say how many times you've visited, how many trips you are planning, or if you want to visit because you have it on your bucket list. These formulas are, I'm not going to say simple, but they could be more difficult. It's basically just multiple if statements relating the date today to the date in the trips. So these formula checkboxes that I talked about before, they relate to roll-ups within the country property. So you can see each checkbox will count towards, for each country, number of trips passed, number of trips planned, and number of trips wanting to go. These formulas are then all separated. So this formula counts how many in the roll-up of trips passed per country, this one how many trips planned per country, and then this one if there is one or more times that this country is on your bucket list. So if you have a country that is in multiple places, so let's put Italy in all 3 places, you now see that Italy shows 3 things. It shows that we've visited 1 time, planning 1 trip, and that we also want to visit it. So these will all count up depending on how many things you have in each section. So that's my trip planning template. As you can see, there's a lot going on within it, but once you know how to use it, it will make planning your next getaway that much easier. Don't forget to head to my Etsy shop down below if you want to buy this or any of my other templates. And make sure to subscribe so you can be notified when I post my next template tutorial. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!